listeners, and human beings from all over the planet. Welcome to the fastest growing podcast in the history of the known universe. With me, Fred Faour, and AJ Hoffman with us on Thursday, as always, just like the old days, only better. Because we can say whatever the hell we want. And we're kind of the complete bosses now. We're kind of... Oh, before I get started, though, we're at Midtown Bar and Grill on Webster in Louisiana. So if you're out and about, great place to come hang out. This is one of my hangouts. And then Mondays, we're now always at Midtown Bar and Grill, big new sponsor. And we have a lot of cool plans for them, including I think we're going to do my birthday party there on December 18th. So, we'll virtually do Annie's that day too. So it'll all be good.
Yeah.
But
you can do a shot for her.
I ran into a guy the other day who used to listen to us all the time, and he was reminding me about the time we talked about how many 5-year-olds we could take. There's actually a website for that where they give you a quiz now. So right. I think somebody stole your idea and turned it into a website.
That's all right. That's all right. I still don't know what the real answer is. Like, did they talk about like their training level and things like that?
Yeah,
they were fearless.
Well, so the questionnaire is like, what's your build? What's this? What's that? Would you use one of the 5-year-olds as a weapon? Your idea.
Yeah, that was my big plan.
So I think we came up with I could do 49 of them. So you could probably do about 400 right now because I'm not, it didn't factor in the fact that I'm just coming off a major neck injury and can barely move still. But yeah, so I thought it was pretty funny. I was going to send you the link and I forgot about it. I got busy and then wound up going to play poker last night. So you know how it goes. And walked out with some money. And it's stupid the little things you can't do when you've got neck and back problems. Like I tried to play about a month ago. And I couldn't sit there for more than about 40 minutes. And it's just like, okay, all right. But last night I was there until 2 in the morning. So I stayed the distance and just kept grinding away. All right. So
good for you.
Let's start I still got it sometimes, AJ. And I got to get back out there so we can, we got to get back to our old rounder habits where we're just going tournament to tournament and winning money. But
those were the good old days.
Yeah.
There's a tournament at the South Point that always has like a $1,200 overlay. It's amazing. So like they have a guaranteed amount that they put up every week, or it's twice a week, I think. But there's always an overlay, and particularly if you go to the one during the week, which during football season I can't, but when it's the off season, I certainly do. And it's like $150 buy-in, and it's like I don't know, it's a $5,000, $6,000 guarantee or something like that, and it'll be like $4,800 worth of money in it. It's like, how do you not play that? It's too good of a value.
Well, I know you've told me about that one in the past, and you go play it when you can. But they have one at the Horseshoe that's like that. It's on a Saturday. It's got a guarantee that they never meet. And the last time I was out there, with you, it was Bally's then, but I played that Saturday one and finished second and got way more of a payoff than you would expect. All right, I want to welcome in Zed, Chucky D, Flea. I am not going to be 90, and B. Hannon. Love you guys. Welcome in. So we talked about this a lot on Monday. I had Dalton Brown on, who went to Duke and who's an ACC guy. And so we had a big discussion about the college football playoff. I think they got it right. It's not a perfect system. There's all kinds of things you have to analyze. It's somebody was going to get screwed. I do feel bad for Florida State. I'm not going to act like I don't. But if I were picking 4 teams, that's who I would have picked.
Yeah, the problem is there's a little bit of incongruence with the way the committee talks. They talk out of both sides of their mouth, and there's the belief that the 4 best resumes were going to get in, and then they were like, no, the 4 best teams are going to get in. And it's hard for me to imagine that Georgia still isn't one of the 4 best teams.
Right, and that's why you can't just blanket say that, because it has to be a combination of the two.
The word that I've used the most when describing this is nuance. And it's not just as simple as pick the 4 best teams or pick the 4 best resumes or choose like how much you value strength of schedule. It's like it's more art than science. And I'm with you, Fred. I feel bad for Florida State. I don't feel bad for Florida State fans because I've found over the last 2 weeks or a week and a half that they're terrible, obnoxious people. But what I have found is like I do feel for the kids. I feel for Jordan Travis because I think he's carrying a lot of this weight. I feel for the rest of the kids who didn't do anything wrong except not have Jordan Travis. I fully like there are people like there's Florida State fans who believe that if Jordan Travis were healthy, that they still wouldn't have gotten in, which I don't believe at all.
Yeah.
I think the committee would have gladly screwed Texas if it came down to it. I think the SEC was always going to get in, and it would have been a bad look, and there would have been people just like the people complaining now for Florida State would have been complaining on behalf of Texas, saying this isn't right, this isn't how it's supposed to be. But again, they would be able to say, well, there's nuance to it. You know, the SEC champion. But the truth is, it's a TV show. And I think we talked about this last week. It's a TV show that's going to create 3 more TV shows, and they want the best TV. And the best TV for the next 2 shows doesn't involve Florida State. It just doesn't. It can't.
Right.
If you're not a Florida State fan, you didn't want to see Florida State in the playoffs because we didn't want to talk about Michigan minus 17 against Florida State for the next month. That's not fun for casuals. The truth is, for casual sports fans, we want, like, if you're not a hardcore and you're not a fan of a school, you want to see good games. You don't want to see Cincinnati get blown out by 1 million. You don't want to see Georgia beat TCU by 1 million. Like, that's the worst thing that could have happened to Florida State is the last 2 years we saw Cincinnati get in and get smacked. And then they had a championship game where most people turned off their television at halftime. The committee television, nobody wants that. And that's what they were putting themselves in danger of with Florida State. So they said, let's just avoid it.
You know what was worse? Being flown out to friggin' LA for that game and not being able to leave and then having to fly back the same night, you know, with a bunch of TCU fans. That was a lot of fun. That was during the Mattress Mag days. Welcome in, Lamont. One of the other things I wanted to get to with you is what do you think of Willie Fritz to UH? I like the hire. I think that's a guy who should be able to turn it around pretty quickly. And, you know, I don't think he's going to tell everybody that he's quitting on the 2024 recruiting season because that ship has passed.
Yeah, I think I worry a little bit about his age. Obviously he's not like the long-term answer. But there were people who were saying they should go out and get some hot coordinator. And I said, Houston is a Power 5 program now. Like, you need to have a coach who's had head coaching experience. Like, you can't get some young buck. That's what G5 schools do. And Houston now needs somebody who's a proven winner. And they certainly got one in Willie Fritz. And he's a program builder. He's like he's a glue guy. Like, he builds programs the right way. And right. I think that's what Houston needs, particularly coming off of what they just had, which is, I mean, I don't want to besmirch the dead or talk down on Dana, but it's like, it doesn't feel like everybody was bought in. It doesn't feel like it was a team. It just felt like Dana going through the motions and getting some players. And let's be honest. When Dana Holgerson came to Houston, did you feel like he was really looking at this job as like, I can win a national championship here or whatever? Like, I never felt like he looked at it that way. I felt like he was a guy who had a better job before. And this was like, oh, well, this is what I got to do to go make money. And at least I get to do it, in a place I'm comfortable. But it never felt like he was bought in. It never felt like his team was bought in. To me, it just wasn't a great fit. And Fritz, this is the best job he's ever had. This is the biggest job he's ever had. It's in a Power 5 conference. He's got tons of resources, and when you can make good things happen at Tulane, which hasn't happened in a long time, the expectation is you can make good things happen here with a bigger recruiting base and more resources. So to me, I think Willie Fritz is going to take this very seriously. I think players love to play for him, And I think that he's going to get, I won't say immediate results, because looking at that roster last year, the cupboard's pretty bare. But I don't think it'll take him long to get the train rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got to improve the offensive line, even though they have an NFL guy that they had last year. But, the one thing I'll push back on with Dana is I do think he was brought here to kind of usher them into the Big 12, and he was into that. And up until this year, it's the first time I've heard him talk where it sounds like he just quit. And he was just cashing a check. And so I think it changed. But, yeah, this wasn't good.
Yeah.
If you missed the top, guys, so I will go ahead and make it official. We're going to do the podcast December 18th. Will be at Midtown Bar and Grill, and then we'll have my birthday party afterwards. And Eva, who joins me on Mondays, the brilliant comedian who makes fun of me even more than AJ, has promised to show her tits. So, or at least,
okay.
At least in her dress, but whatever. Okay, one other thing that I wanted to hit on before we got to really dove into the NFL. College basketball is up and running. I don't know how much you've gotten to see of these Cougars. They're up to number 3.
I had minus 27.5 last night.
So did I. Because you give them a cripple, they're going to cover. I mean, yeah. I bet them at 30 against somebody earlier, and it's just and then when they play good teams, they never cover.
I call them a boa constrictor. Like it's like a crock pot. It's not instant. Like with Baylor, sometimes they're up 40-5, and it's like, well, that's how they blow teams out. And it was kind of the similar thing last night with Rice. It wasn't like a runaway. I think Rice had a lead when they were in the teens, but you start to, the crock pot starts simmering, and that boa constrictor starts to squeeze, and you get an 8-0 run, and then they score a basket, and then there's immediately another 8-0 run, and that's when things that's how Houston blows you out. It's slow, they wear you down, they've got depth, they're physical, they rebound hard. It's funny because they're not a great shooting team, but they're still great offensively because they don't turn the ball over, and they offensive rebound like madmen. And when you get 15, 20 more shots at the basket than your opponent, you're gonna win by margin most of the time. And that's what they do. They get so many more possessions because of turnovers and offensive rebounds that they're a blowout machine. And you're right, they don't really do that against the best teams, but if you don't have the bodies to hold up with them, they're gonna punish you. And I like teams like that because I know their identity. I know they don't feel bad for teams. Like they're not gonna take it easy on a team because they suck. Like no. Kelvin wants them to play their game, and those are the kind of teams I look for as a gambler. I want teams that have a consistent profile, and this is what they do in these situations. And it's something you can trust. And I think Houston fits the bill.
I think they're deeper than they've been in the past, which is another reason that makes those blowouts easy because their second 5 is going to be better than Rice's first 5. And And what the thing about them, well, what concerns me come tournament time, you talk about they get those runs. I always tell my brother the run always comes with them. It doesn't matter what the score is. Sooner or later, you're going to look up and they're going to go 12-2, and then they're going to do it again. They get turnovers. I'm worried about size inside, although I like this Tugler kid a lot. He's a true freshman.
I like him too.
Yeah, 7'9" wingspan for a 6'7" guy. So that's a guy who plays a lot bigger than he is. And if you watch their first few games, he just looked lost. He was just standing there doing that. Each game, he's gotten more and more involved, and you could just see the light coming on slowly. And I think by tournament time, he's going to be a real asset to him. But I'm always scared.
And I think the same thing for Arsenault. I think Arsenault is the same guy. He's becoming better and better, and doesn't turn the ball over. He fits in perfectly.
Yeah, and Arsenault showed some flashes last year, so he's got a little more a body of work. But I think that the other thing, and this may be an unpopular opinion, I think Jay Cryer is better than Marcus Sasser. I just think he's a better basketball player. And Sasser was a great player, don't get me wrong, but they have not missed a beat with him. And that's a guy when they're not scoring, which is always going to worry me in the tournament because they go through those stretches where they can't throw a ball in the water from basket from anywhere. But they go to him and he hits a 3. That and the free throw shooting concerns me.
Yeah, and I was a little concerned, like you mentioned the depth, and I thought losing Mark the or the right, yeah, who am I thinking of? Trayvon Mark, yeah.
Yeah, he went to
I thought,
Arkansas.
yeah, I thought losing him was going to be such a big deal, and it really hasn't been. They haven't missed a beat. So it's a credit to Sampson and his recruiting, obviously, but it's not just getting like I don't know how many of these guys, like, LJ Cryer is a good player, but how many of these guys would be starting at Kentucky or North Carolina? I don't know. But that's what I love about this Houston team, and really about Baylor, where Cryer came from, is they it's more than the sum of the parts. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they build a team instead of just getting superstar players in here, and it's super effective. And so I love the teams that are built like Houston, the teams that are built like Baylor, where it feels like everybody knows their role. No one cares who gets the final touch. Like these are the kind of teams that I look to. I mean, you certainly want to have a guy you can lean on, and I think the Cougars have a couple of those guys in Cryer and Shed, but I think that having a team where everybody trusts everybody almost equally, like you've got 8, 9 players that you trust, and it doesn't really matter who's on the floor, and they're very switchable. Like those kind of teams are super scary, super dangerous. I think that's what Houston's got right now.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I have my concerns moving forward, but I really need to see them with a real test. I mean, Dayton wasn't a bad team, and Utah's not a bad team, but those aren't teams you should worry about. I'm looking forward to A&M next week because I think A&M, even with the injuries they have, I think Buzz is a great coach and is building a pretty good program.
I agree. I'll give you a little nugget, and this blew my mind. Houston is projected, at least per KenPom. You never know what the actual betting market
Right.
will say. They're projected to win every game on their schedule for the rest of the season. So they're projected to be a 2-point favorite at Kansas. They're projected to be a 6-point favorite at Texas, and a 1-point favorite at BYU. So that'd be the closest games for them. But yeah, they're expected to win every single game, or at least they're projected to win, not expected. But this is it's a pretty favorable thing to see, and they didn't go out of their way. And you mentioned like you'd like to see them play somebody good. Last year, you remember they played St. Mary's, they played Alabama, they played Virginia, and they felt a little more battle tested than this team is going to feel.
State too played them hard. I mean, they played a really, but they had to because they were in the AAC. They don't have to.
Yeah, this season it's going to be A&M, and then you're going to get into conference play. I mean, there's going to like Penn doesn't stink, like you said, Utah doesn't stink, Dayton doesn't stink. Xavier, I'm not sure if they stink, but whatever. None of them are like really going to let you know where you stand in the Big 12. So I do think there will be a little bit of a culture shock when they play teams like A&M or when they get into the Big 12 schedule, particularly the meat of it. But yeah, I certainly think this is a team that I want to back. Especially like I could see another Final Four run here, and I don't think a national championship's out of the question. But the Big 12 is just such a madhouse. Like BYU is so freaking good. I don't know if you've seen them play, but they are amazing. Yeah. Kansas is really good. Again, it's going to be a really grind of a season. Like I think UCF is not very good. West Virginia's not very good, and Oklahoma State's not very good. Everybody else is good, and it's like when you got that many good teams, it makes for a rough season, man.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of talking about with somebody the other day. Is that as much as I love this UH team, there's a lot of games on their schedules that are just not layups. I mean, Texas Tech is not a layup. TCU is not a layup. Those teams play well. I think it's going to have them battle tested for the tournament. And his argument was, they'll be worn out by the tournament. And I'm like, Kansas doesn't get worn out by the tournament. And
no,
and hey, look, the Big East doesn't suck. I mean, UConn went through a lot too just to get there. So the Xavier game, and I never say this, but that was one of the most unbalanced called games I've ever seen. Like every time Xavier had the ball, the Cougars got called for a foul. and every time the Cougars got hit on the other end, they got nothing. And now the last couple minutes, it started to even out, and that's when UH pulled away. So I don't think Xavier is very good. It's just that was just a situation, and first real road game. I mean, the Dayton game was kind of a road game in that tournament, but that was their first real road game, and that's one thing about all these Texas teams is they don't have to leave the state most of the time.
I was gonna say, by the way, it's their only real road game of the non-con. Like they won't play a real road game until they play Iowa State in the second week of January. So that was the one road game that they played, which is a little surprising to me. I do think going forward, Kelvin has to get a little more serious about scheduling non-conference and making sure that they're a little more tested. And I get it, like you said last year, the AAC, you're in a different world, and you got to have those teams to build your resume. Now, if you do well in the Big 12, your resume speaks for itself. But I still think, preparing for that season is important.
How interesting is it going to be next year when you have Arizona in there with Kansas, Houston, Baylor, potentially 4 Final Four type teams every year?
Unbelievable.
I mean, how much fun is that going to be?
It's going to be incredible, and it's almost like the SEC of football. If Texas can get back to what Texas is capable of being, if Oklahoma can get back to what they're capable of being, those things are going to be missed. But what they're bringing in is just so much. It's better, to be honest.
From a basketball standpoint,
now, Yeah. For only basketball, but what Arizona is now is better than what Texas's ceiling probably is. So I think it's going to be huge for the conference, and that's where losing those 2 football powers, obviously financially and from a media coverage perspective, that hurts for football, but for basketball, this is the premier basketball conference in the country, and it's not even close.
Yeah, and then you hate losing those brands for football, but they did get a pretty good deal because, once the Big Ten and the SEC their deals are done, there wasn't a lot left. ACC's been locked up for a long time, so they did get a really good television deal. So they'll make money. It's just you obviously make more money if you've got Texas and Oklahoma in football.
Yeah.
But from a basketball perspective, I mean, I couldn't be more excited. One other basketball question I wanted to hit you with. Because you do know your college basketball. The whole thing that happened with Chris Beard at Texas last year, I mean, I don't think any of us know the facts or what really happened. He sure is doing a damn good job on his new job. I mean, I watched him beat Memphis the other day, and it's like, holy shit, he's doing a great job.
Yeah, I don't think, the idea that Chris Beard, isn't a good coach, I don't think that was ever in the discussion. I think he's one of the best. I think he's probably one of the 10 best basketball coaches in the country, college basketball coaches in the country. And I mean, Texas had what felt like a home run hire from a recruiting standpoint, from an X's and O's standpoint. And again, we don't know the facts. We probably will never know the facts about what actually happened. But in Texas, if this had happened at insert random school, they probably find a way to sweep it under the rug and let it keep going. But Texas is very big about image and what they're looked at like, and it was just something that they weren't willing to tolerate. And it's, I mean, listen, it's Sarkisian right now. I don't know what kind of contract they signed with him, but I guarantee you, if Steve Sarkisian, who has had alcohol issues in the past, if he got a DUI in the offseason, if he wins the national championship this year and gets a DUI in the offseason, they will move on from Steve Sarkisian. That's just the Texas mindset is, we're not going to have any of this controversy. We're not going to have any of this nonsense, at least not with coaches. They've had players with it before, and they're loyal to their student athletes, and they try to help them through issues. Sergio Kindle's one that comes to mind. Got a DUI in college, then drove his car into an apartment building while he was texting. But when it comes to their coaches and the people who are first of all, incredibly well compensated employees of the university, but also very public faces of it, they don't tolerate it.
Yeah, it's it was just a weird situation because it felt like when it happened that they had some other reason they weren't happy with him because they moved so fast. But I think the reality is, no, they just thought this is a bad look for Texas and we're better than this. And
I think
yeah,
so.
it's disappointing because I loved him there. I thought that was the perfect place. And yes, I thought of all the guys out there that, I thought he could win a national championship at Texas. I really did. I don't think there's a lot of coaches who could because it's not as easy as people think.
And let's also, I mean, listen, and I'm not trying to shit on what Ole Miss has done so far this year, but you talk about not really stepping up in class. They haven't. Like, Memphis is the best team they played. They played them at home. They've also played one road game, and it was against Temple, and they barely won.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not convinced. Like, I'm not convinced it's a finished product. I think they're going to have a really rough SEC season, but I think in a couple cycles, once he starts getting his guys in there, you're going to see a really good team. And who knows how long he'll be at Ole Miss, because much like Texas Tech, someone bigger will come knocking.
Yep.
And there's going to be a line of people who, especially once it's like the Kendall Briles thing. Once it's simmered down a little bit, people are like, yeah, he's a bad guy, but man, those offenses, am I right? And those guys tend to get more opportunities. Bobby Petrino, look where he's at. So
well, not anymore.
He got hired at Arkansas now. So
okay, I didn't see that.
He got hired to be the OC at Arkansas. So
okay, yeah, he was at A&M replaced him as OC. They hired I can't remember who they hired.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But when you have talent, people find it, and they're willing to overlook a lot of stuff. Chris Beard will fall into that category.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Give me one team that you've seen in college basketball before we get to the NFL that nobody's talking about, that we will be talking about in March. I know you always have one.
Yeah, well, I mean, BYU is the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody saw them being as good as they have been, and it's not a fluke. Like, what BYU is doing is very sustainable against real teams. What they did early in the season against San Diego State, a team that was in the national championship game last year, and they just really pulled their pants down. They smacked around a pretty solid North Carolina State team. I almost bet against them. I guess it was earlier this week. I don't remember what day, when they played Evansville. Evansville was I think they were 8-1 ATS or something like that. And BYU beat them by 40 points. This is a very, very good, very talented team, very well coached. So they're certainly on my radar. Another team that I'm starting to come around on, and I've bitten into this apple before, and it's burned me. But I think Illinois might be pretty good.
I was almost going to say, you're going to say Illinois.
Listen, when there's coaches that I respect, like Brad Underwood, I just think he's a really good coach. And he's got talent now. Like, Terrence Shannon is one of the probably 10 best players in the country. And he bringing in Marcus Domas and Quincy Guerrier in the transfer portal. Like, he's getting real talent. Those are a great coach who's able to bring in real talent. That's the teams that I'm looking for. And Illinois is not a brand name. So it's not a team that people are like, oh, we got to bet on Illinois. Like, it's not someone we think about as like, oh, they're a potential Final Four team. But they're a team that I'm certainly interested in. I still love Marquette. They've lost a couple games. I love Creighton. I love Houston, but those are the two teams I would say, BYU and Illinois, that are kind of under the radar teams that I'm really interested in right now.
Yeah, how is it Shaka forgot to coach at Texas, but he gets to Marquette, and he's just killing it?
I think it's just like there's guys who have a certain level, and what Shaka requires is for you to really bust your ass and play super hard, for 40 minutes. And when you're at a big time school and you're getting 5 stars, those guys aren't always interested in that. And it's kind of like I talked about with Houston. Like, Marquette's one of those teams, and Shaka's one of those coaches that fits that mold, where the team is better than the sum of the parts. And when you don't have to have 5 stars to do what he does, and you just got to have guys who are bought in. And if you get a 5-star, awesome, but they've got to buy in, otherwise the whole thing falls apart. So I think at Texas they focus too much on getting the best players, and the best players weren't interested in playing the way that Shaka wanted to play. So, which is a bit of a bummer. But it is what it is. One other team, I'd be remiss. Texas A&M is very good.
I'm really looking
This
forward
is
to that Aggie UH game, man.
Buzz has been waiting for this team. They still aren't a good shooting team, but much like they've got a lot in common with UH. They're an elite offensive rebounding team, and they never turn the ball over. And those are the kind of things that Buzz loves. And they play slow. They're also kind of a crock pot. Right now, I think they're a poor man's version of Houston. But obviously, I think Buzz is an elite level coach. And I think he's really close to having this thing break through. I don't know if it's this season. I think he might be like a real legit shooter away from breaking through. But Wade Taylor's a star. If they can stay healthy, they've got some real talent there, and a team that's really bought into what Buzz wants to do. Yep. Do I got you there, Freddie?
I had muted myself.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, everything good. So anyway, so moving on, I want to talk about the Texans a little bit because I know you still follow them. I think that was a better win than most people would look at because Denver came in on a roll and was playing really good football. My only beef with the whole game was what the fuck were they doing having Tank Dell in the middle of a goal line play with Dameon Pierce, who, by the way, needs to be put out the pasture. This guy just sucks. But
yeah,
and you and I talked about this. I think we've talked about it all year. It's like, man, I love Tank Dell. I love that they drafted him. You just got to make sure you use him right and not put him in a position like that.
It's very Deshaun Jackson-y, right? Like when he's on the field, it's awesome, but the problem is keeping him on the field because he's not really built for the NFL. So you have to do things to try your best to keep him healthy. That was a huge mismanagement of your roster. Like putting him in that situation is something that shouldn't have happened. I'm sure they regret it. But I'm also sure that they're going to say, like, well, everybody's got to be a football player, and football players do football player things. There's always a risk, but different guys do different things, and you're not going to have, you're not going to, if you've got let's say, for instance, Bryce Young. You know what I mean? Bryce Young. They're not going to have him they're not going to have him running quarterback sneaks from 3 yards out, like trying to get first downs, because chances are good he's going to get hurt. Whereas guys like Trevor Lawrence or Josh Allen, who are 6'6", they're willing to take more risk. And are those guys going to get hurt too? Of course. I mean,
possibly, yeah.
Trevor Lawrence just got hurt. It's the first time in his career, but Trevor Lawrence is built not to get hurt. Like he's built like if you could build a robot quarterback, it would look a lot like Trevor Lawrence, with probably a smaller nose. But Tank Dell is not the kind of receiver you build in a lab. He's a unique piece that you've got to use in a unique way, and the Texans I think they misused him.
Yeah, I think it's borderline criminal because, look, Tank's 160 pounds.
Yeah,
and the way they were using him, just keep him spread out wide, use him in the slot sometimes, let him get open, was perfect, and he was having a terrific year. And the occasional. Oh, by the way, don't disrespect Trevor's beak, man. It's important to have a good.
I know your team snout, so I get
oh yeah. But occasional reverse, things like that. But and he's not Tyreek Hill. He's like a mini Tyreek Hill. But you've never seen Tyreek Hill do that. You don't have him in there doing that. So that's just somebody on the coaching staff just totally fucked up there. And it sucks that he got hurt. I mean, he could have got hurt. If he gets hurt on an out route or something, okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Or if you let him return too many punts and he gets hurt, I'm like, okay. But that was just stupid. But what do you think
I'm
about
with
the
you on Pierce. He's just not he's not the guy. Like, I know he had a little flash last year and everybody got really excited. He's just not that good, and it's okay. It's not like you invested a high draft pick or like a first round or a ton of free agency money. With running backs, if they don't work out, you just try again. I'm a big believer in that. So go find they're out there. Go try again.
Yeah, you and I have always been on the same page on that. But I mean, the thing is, with Pierce, he was never the fastest guy, and then once he got hurt last year, ever since he's come back, if you're a not fast guy who loses a step, that makes you a slow guy.
And he doesn't seem to be a great scheme fit, really, for the current offense. And then they've got another guy who is a good scheme fit, but maybe isn't all that talented. So they're in a weird spot. That to me, that's something they need to figure out as a way to run the ball more effectively than they have this season, and take a little off of CJ's plate, and this offense can be even better.
Yeah, I think that's going to have to be an off-season thing, though. And the one thing about this, you look at who's successful: Mostert in Miami, speed; McCaffrey, speed. Not slow guys. And I mean, it's just part of it's a scheme, and I think part of it's a player. All right. Any games you like this week?
I mean, there's always games I like in the NFL. Yeah. My favorite game is probably, we talked about Jacksonville. That's probably my favorite game on the board this week, at least at the current numbers. I like Cleveland -3 here. This is a home team in what's supposed to be ugly weather. And Trevor Lawrence, we know he's not going to play. And I say that. I highly doubt he plays. And if he does, great. You're playing on a high ankle sprain on a short week. You're not going to be able to move. That's even better against this Cleveland team. But the line was Jacksonville -3. Now it's Cleveland -3. And is Trevor Lawrence worth 6 points? I don't know. But they also lost Christian Kirk, their number one receiver.
Yeah.
They lost their left tackle, Walker Little, who was already filling in for Cam Robinson. They also had injuries on defense. Foley Fatukasi is a hurt foot. Tyson Campbell's got a quad. Trey Herndon's still in concussion protocol. So, and meanwhile, the Browns are getting healthier. Their number one corner, Denzel Ward, back at practice. He's going to play. And Joe Flacco, he looked okay. Like, he looked fine to me. Like, was he perfect? No, but I mean, he looked better than the Zach Wilsons and Tim Boyles and Mac Joneses of the world. And Joe Flacco's a historically good weather quarterback. He's great in wind.
Yeah.
So then the Browns' defensive splits. The Browns at home allow 10.1 points per game. On the road, 30.6 points per game. And when you put a banged-up offensive line, a backup quarterback, and by the way, Beathard he didn't come out of that game unscathed either. He's banged up. So
yeah, they didn't have a third quarterback. He had to go back out there.
Exactly. So you don't know what it's going to look like for Jacksonville at quarterback against this Browns defense. Like, if it becomes a trenches game, and in this weather, I think it's a trenches game, the Browns have a huge edge no matter who's playing quarterback for Cleveland. So Cleveland's my favorite play this week.
Yeah, I actually like Joe Flacco in the spot. I mean, what's the real drop-off between Deshaun Watson this year and Joe Flacco?
From this season, there's not much. And like Joe Flacco from PJ Walker, Joe Flacco's better than PJ Walker.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco's a professional quarterback. You know, was he ever like a top 5 quarterback in the league? No, but he was consistently a top half of the league quarterback almost his entire career. Like I thought it was crazy as I watched that game last week that Joe Flacco has been sitting on his couch all year long, and the Patriots and the Jets have been running out the guys that they've been running out. I'm like, why did they not call this guy at some point? It's so obvious that this guy can play. Is he going to be great? No. But there's not a lot of even serviceable quarterbacks playing in the NFL right now. Joe Flacco is certainly serviceable.
Yeah, some of these backups are just complete jokes.
It's gross, man.
And that's the thing. That's why I look at the Texans and I see, Case Keenum sitting third on the roster. That's a guy who can win a Colt McCoy. Those are guys that, not sexy names, but they can win a game or two for you.
No doubt.
Especially when I'm watching some of the crap that's getting trotted out there. So. All right, let's go through the rest of the league. We got the game tonight. New England at Pittsburgh. This is I really want to play Pittsburgh here on the short week because I know New England can't score, but I don't trust Mitch Trubisky as much as I trust my ex-wife.
Yeah, I played 32.5 under early in the week. It's now at 30.5. So it's pretty painful playing a 32. Playing a 30 is but it's really the one way I would look. And that makes me want to look at the Patriots. I've got no interest in betting the Patriots, though. I really do think this is just a dead team. But defensively, whatever you think, their offense is dreadful. But defensively, this is the best they've been in a long time, especially considering all the injuries and stuff they have on defense. This is a really good defensive coaching job for the Patriots. And one thing I know about New England is I don't think they're going to quit. I don't think that Belichick's going to let them tank. Like they're going to keep playing hard. Do they have the talent? No. But against Pittsburgh, who is a defensive-minded team, doesn't mind getting in the mud and playing an ugly game. I think this is a really close, really ugly, really not a fun game to watch, certainly. But this is the kind of game that New England will have a chance in, because if I said Pittsburgh scores 28 points, there's zero chance for New England. I don't think Pittsburgh can score 28 points. So that means New England's got a shot.
So if they score 14, all you need is a long punt return or a tip pass or something like that. That's why I just can't get behind Pittsburgh here, because for those reasons. But I also just can't bet New England. Tampa at Atlanta, and this one's interesting because that AFC South is still pretty much there for 3 of the 4 teams.
Yeah, listen, the Bucs are beat up on defense, and it's actually getting worse. Vita Vea has been banged up, and he's probably the most important player for them to stop the run. The Falcons aren't a team that I'm super excited to back, but this was in week 7. Tampa was -2.5 at home. Atlanta won that game by 3. They were slightly better statistically. And really both these teams, the Falcons have been maybe slightly better than Tampa since then. But now you fast forward 6 weeks and the line says Atlanta -1 at home. That says the market believes Tampa is a better team than Atlanta. And I don't believe that. I think Atlanta's better. I think particularly Atlanta's better at home.
Right.
If you go back to that first matchup in Tampa, Desmond Ridder fumbled 3 times in the red zone.
Yeah.
He fumbled twice on the 1-yard line. I think the Falcons are better. I think this is a disrespectful line. I like Atlanta -1. I also like the over in this game, over 39.5, because I think if you look at that first box score, there was a lot of yardage, and then Desmond Ridder, and they weren't able to punch him in. I think in a dome, like in a week where there's a bunch of super low totals because weather, we don't have to worry about weather here. If you're looking for an over this week, I think the Falcons might be a good one.
Yeah, and Ridder really has been a lot better at home. That's and so I think that's a big factor as well. And get Drake London involved, get Pitts, just get your big dogs involved, and he does that at home, not on the road. Detroit at Chicago. Chicago coming off an interesting game, to say the least. And, I don't know what to make of Detroit. I kind of throw them into that mix with Miami and Dallas, where I think they're really good, but they're just short of the big dogs. But I think they can get there. I don't know. It's just I don't know what it is about them that makes me go. I feel like Jared Goff is a good quarterback, maybe better than people give him credit for. But I think he's kind of Kirk Cousins. He'll put up a lot of numbers for you. In this game, though, I'm not sure where to go, so I could use some guidance.
Well, Jared Goff outdoors is a thing. He's bad. And in this game, we're looking at 32 degrees, winds in the mid-teens. The Bears have been better defensively, and the Lions' defense is getting worse and worse. They put Aleem McNeil on the IR with a knee injury, and Aleem McNeil's not like a huge name, but he's right there with Aiden Hutchinson. Like, they are the 2 best players on that Lions defense. Hutchinson's the pass rush guy. McNeil is the run stopper. And that's a big loss for a team that already struggles to stop the run. I thought the Bears outplayed the Lions a couple weeks ago. Fields ran for over 100 yards in that game. The Lions seem to have a hard time stopping running quarterbacks, and now they're playing this game in conditions where being able to run the ball matters even more.
Right.
I feel like these two teams are kind of going in different directions. So getting into a home dog outside of field goal feels strong to me. So I like Chicago here.
Okay. I thought they looked I thought they looked great in that game, but short week. I kind of like the Colts going in here to Cincinnati. Tell me I'm wrong.
This is a tough game to call. Like on one hand, what I saw from Jake Browning was really impressive. I don't know how sustainable it is, but because nothing before last week said that he was capable of that, but he looked like legit. But on the other hand, the Colts just keep finding ways to win games. I talked about the Lions and the Bears and how the Lions are built for inside, the Bears are built for outside.
Yeah.
Indy is a team that's kind of built for outside, and Cincy's kind of a team that's built. They're a team that's built for inside. And in Cincy, the temp's going to be in the 30s there. There's rain, there's snow. So to me, the first thing I do is I look at the trenches, and Indy just has a huge advantage in the trenches. And like it feels like if you want to bet Cincy, you have to be certain that the number moving 1.5 points on Browning's performance is really what it is. Like, because this was Indy minus 2.5. And they said, oh, Browning was so good, we're going to knock a point. We're upgrading the Bengals 1.5 on Jake Browning. I don't know about that, so I lean to the Colts as well, but probably a game I won't be involved in.
All right. We talked about Jacksonville and Cleveland a lot. I'm with you on that one. So we'll move on to Carolina at New Orleans, and I'm going to let you take this for 30 seconds while I run to the little boys' room right behind me.
Listen, I like Carolina here. This is a lot more about New Orleans, though, than it is Carolina. I have no faith in the Saints at this point. They're beat up. We're still not totally sure who's going to play quarterback for them. But it doesn't really matter. Carr, Winston, they've both been awful as favorites. Lattimore's on the IR. Michael Thomas on the IR. Rashid Shaheed has a leg injury. Malcolm Roach, Cam Jordan, Isaiah Foskey. Basically, their entire D-line is all banged up. Dennis Allen, this is a shocking number to me. 5-16 ATS in his career. He is the Saints have been favored 10 times this year. The Saints are 1-9 ATS as favorites this year. That is wild to me. Carolina's getting healthier. They got J.C. Horn back, their best defensive player. He should be able to hold Olave in check, and Olave's really been the only reliable weapon for the Saints. We also saw with the new offense, the Saints, or excuse me, with the new offense for the Panthers, they got back to running the football. They handed the ball to Chuba Hubbard a lot. He's clearly the better running back. I think you're going to see a lot of that with this Panthers offense now, trying to be run heavy, and you can run on the Saints, specifically if with Roach and those guys banged up on the defensive line, you're going to be able to run on them. So I just think this is a good spot for Carolina, not a great spot for the Saints. Just the Saints as favorites. The Saints shouldn't be this big a favorite over anybody. The Saints suck, to be honest.
I didn't hear all that, but I agree 100% because
there you go.
I would go. All right, so Texans at New York. I got to tell you, not popular. I think I'm leaning Jet here. I just think that the Texans on the road, not nearly as good. They lost to Carolina on the road. I think they're a better team than the Jets right now, and I know the Jets have quarterback problems. But could Wilson really be worse than what they've been trotting out there at quarterback?
Well, here's what I know. I bet on this game early in the week. I bet on the side and the total. And I bet on the total under 37. And now it's 33. So I feel great about that bet.
Yeah.
I also bet the Texans -6, and now they're -3.5. I don't feel great about that bet, obviously.
Right.
So I'm kind of a split here, but I just was thinking, and obviously I do think Zach Wilson, the upside of him is higher than Tim Boyle, but man, he's just been so bad. And the Texans defense is way better right now. Stingley's made a real difference for this defense. And I don't know, like, let's just say how many points are the Jets going to score? And if if the numbers, like, if you think it's what I think it is, like, it doesn't take a lot of offense to cover 3.5. The Jets are averaging 8.5 points per game over the last 5 games, over their 5-game losing streak. If they score 10 points, all you got to do is score 14 and you cover 3.5.
Right.
Like, the Jets offense is so, like, Breece Hall is no good anymore, 26.5 yards per game over his last 6 games. And the Texans are playing with some swagger. They can be a playoff team. The Trevor Lawrence injury, if I'm on the Texans or I'm on the Colts, I'm looking at that and going, oh, hey, I feel something here. Whereas the Jets are just dead in the water. Like, the fact that Zach Wilson was hesitant to even get on the football field, that's scary to me. And think about this. How much better are the Texans than the Falcons? I think significantly that the Texans are better. I mean, the Falcons have Desmond Ridder. The Texans have C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
But the Falcons were just 2.5-point favorites at the Jets. The Texans are now 3.5. Like, to me, the upgrade from C.J. Stroud over Desmond Ridder is worth way more than that point. So I still like the Texans here. I'm worried about the road. Anytime you've got a rookie quarterback on the road, I'm nervous. But I just think the Jets' offense is in shambles.
But you know what? The Jets are the NFL version of Iowa. I said this the other day.
Yeah,
I mean, they've got a really
except
good
Iowa
defense.
wins more games.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
But I mean, they got a really good defense, but they can't score. But they can ugly it up enough to keep themselves in it again. And so we were talking earlier. You get a tip pass or a block punt or something silly, then, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's just me being skeptical of the Texans. I mean, I think that's what it is.
But think about this, Fred. There comes a point where, like, when the Jets played Buffalo, the Bills put up 32. When the Jets played Miami, the Dolphins put up 34. Like, at some point, that defense gets tired. Like, it's hard to carry a team all season long when your offense is that pathetic.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. To me, this is a team that's just not there anymore. So that's the kind of teams I look to fade at this point in the season. There was I guess Robert Saleh got called out for basically saying that Zach Wilson, like, what somebody had texted him and said, what about putting back in Zach Wilson? He's like, are you kidding? And now they have to put back in Zach Wilson, and it's like there's drama, and Aaron Rodgers is bitching. Like, there's some real dysfunction going on right now with the Jets, and I just don't want any part of it.
Well, and one thing I'll say on the positive slate for the Texans is Will Anderson has developed into a real force. I mean, he had his moments early in the season, but now he's really turned into a monster. And then Stingley.
And he's making Grenard better, too.
Yeah. But maybe with Derek Stingley, we should be revisiting these Sauce Gardner versus Derek Stingley comparisons in the draft because Gardner was so great last year. Stingley's been magnificent. And
the only reason I won't revisit it is because Sauce Gardner is pretty consistently on the field.
Yeah. Well, and as our good friend Charlie Palillo used to say, attendance is part of the grade.
That's right.
But I mean, since Stingley's been back out there, he's looked like a different player, and I think he's been fantastic. All right, let's get through a couple more of these. LA at Baltimore. I'm pretty much going to default to Baltimore on anybody they play right now. I think that it's either them or Niners for best team in football. I think it's Baltimore.
Yeah, listen, I don't blame you, but I think people are kind of they're not really understanding where this Rams offense is right now. The Rams offense in DVOA is right there with the Cowboys. They have the same offensive stats as the Cowboys. They're 8th in rushing despite a 4-week span where Kyron Williams was on the IR and they couldn't run the ball at all. They just put up 400 yards of offense against the freaking Cleveland Browns. When Sean McVay has a running back to take some of the load off of Stafford and Cooper Kupp and those guys, that's when his offense. I mean, that's why they made the Super Bowl with Todd Gurley. And Kyron Williams is that dude. He is so dynamic. He gives their offense a whole new look. And the Rams, they've allowed 17 points per game over the last 4. The Ravens offense wasn't playing particularly well against the Chargers. Now they have to figure out life without Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews has 6 of the 14 receiving touchdowns for Baltimore. Now he's gone. Baltimore's remaining schedule: at Jacksonville, who they're tied with right now for the number 1 seed, at San Francisco, Miami, who they're battling for the number 1 seed, and Pittsburgh, their biggest rival. That's their remaining schedule. I think the Rams sitting at 6-6. They've got a legit chance to make the playoffs. They take this game really serious. I like the Rams catching a touchdown or more.
All right. You know what I'm going to do before we finish these last few games, and we'll keep him on with us in case he wants to weigh in. Our good buddy Lawyer Dave, who we have not had on for a while. What's going on, Dave? Okay. All right, we'll keep going until I can actually figure out why he's not talking. So we got Minnesota at Vegas. I think right. You got the. Hey, there you are.
Okay.
What's up, Dave?
Teacher at the high school.
Oh, there he went.
Now he's dead. Okay. So anyway, Minnesota at Vegas. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's if this is 3, if you can get a 3 here, there's no way I can get to 3 with Minnesota. I understand the Jefferson return is going to help Minnesota, but Josh Dobbs has no reps with this guy. And Josh Dobbs, I don't know if he turned into a pumpkin last game, but I mean, that's a lot of interceptions, and they couldn't do anything against the Bears defense. The Raiders still stink against the run, but I don't think that matters against the Vikings. They can't really run the ball. I just don't think there's enough of a talent gap for Minnesota to be a 3-point road favorite here against the Raiders, I don't think the Raiders are good, but there's been some rejuvenation to them. So if you can get a full 3, I would back the Raiders here.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think these teams are basically equal. Minnesota has just managed to win a few games. I don't think Josh Dobbs. I think the Josh Dobbs thing ended last week because they figured out how to defend him, and they confused him.
And now they're already talking about going to Nick Mullins. That's not a good sign. So Minnesota they may be a sell team for me.
Seattle at San Francisco. I know San Francisco coming off the big win. I've been backing Seattle all year, but I kind of think I'm staying away from this game.
Seattle, I'm starting to think that Seattle might not be that good. San Francisco's won 4 straight. Well, they've won and covered 4 straight in this series. This number was 7.5 2 weeks ago in Seattle. Seattle -7, or San Francisco -7.5 at Seattle. The Niners absolutely dominated that game. Both teams have covered since. And now it's 10.5. So they're basically just saying 1.5 points for home field. You flip them. We're now at San Francisco -10.5 at home. But that's assuming you didn't upgrade San Francisco after they beat the shit out of Seattle.
Right.
And
Philadelphia.
No, I'm talking about with the first game that they played.
Oh, yeah.
When Seattle played San Francisco. And now the list of DNPs at Seahawk practice, both running backs, 4 starters on defense. And the more you dig into the Seahawks schedule, you say, okay, they that week 2 win against Detroit, everybody got excited because everybody thought Detroit was really good. And maybe Detroit is good. I don't know. But they won at Detroit. That was a great win. Besides that, they beat Carolina, the Giants, Arizona with Josh Dobbs, Cleveland with PJ Walker, and the Commanders. They're just not beating anybody worth a damn. And they're getting typically blown out by good teams, although they did compete with Dallas last week, which I guess you give them some credit. I typically want to back Pete Carroll as a dog. Only Mike Tomlin has a better ATS as a dog, but I'm not looking to get in front of San Francisco. This is a juggernaut team. When they're healthy, I think they are way better than everybody else, and way better than Seattle, who I think is a borderline playoff team.
All right. Buffalo at Kansas City before the season, we'd be talking about this as an AFC Championship preview. Buffalo with all the injuries. Kansas City's offense is just not good. I mean, You've got homeless guys at receiver, and it's not just that they drop the ball. It's they run bad routes. The one that Sky Moore ran into the interception on, he just ran the wrong route. And there's a lot of that going on. And the dirty little secret is they're probably better on defense than they are on offense.
It's not even close. Remember the Bills went in last year. They were road favorites at Kansas City, and they won and covered. I don't think either one of these teams are close to what they were a year ago, but I feel like they're trending in opposite directions right now. You're right. The Chiefs' offense isn't getting better. The players just aren't there. Bills are off a bye. Kansas City has short week because they played Sunday Night Football. And Josh Allen, what I liked about Josh Allen the last time that they played, they lost that game to the Eagles. But what we saw Josh Allen do is what we've been saying. Like they said at the beginning of the season, we want to run Josh less because we want him healthy for the playoffs. So Josh hasn't run a lot this season. In that game, he was like, fuck it, I got to go. And he started running the ball. It ran for like 90 yards. If Josh Allen is going to start running the football, I think we're going to see Josh Allen, like the good version of Josh Allen. And it's funny that Josh Allen is like, because of the interceptions, people are like, oh, he's so bad this year. If you look at Josh Allen's numbers, Josh Allen is having an incredible season. It's just he throws a lot of picks. That's what he does. I like Buffalo here. I played Buffalo at 3. Now that it's down to 1.5, I think the best thing to do is use Buffalo in a teaser because this Kansas City offense isn't blowing anybody out. So I lean to Buffalo. If you've got a pool or something, you got to play a side. I'd take Buffalo, but I think they go in and I think they can get a win.
Yeah,
they'll lose there in the playoffs, obviously.
Oh yeah, obviously.
But in the regular season, that's what they do. They get the win at Kansas City in the regular season, and then they lose in the playoffs.
Denver at LA. Broncos had their win streak snapped last week in Houston. They do look like a better team than they did earlier in the season. I think the shorter passes with Russell Wilson have made them better on offense.
Yeah, I don't trust either one of these teams right now. I mean, a gun to my head, I would take Denver +3 because getting to laying 3 with the Chargers, who don't really have a home field advantage, is crazy to me. They couldn't move the ball against New England. 6 points against the Patriots, 8 points per game in their last 2 games. No thanks. But I just don't trust Denver at all. I think what we saw last week is closer to the reality than that big winning streak. So I don't want anything to do with this game. I mean, they can line every Chargers game at 3, -3, or +3, and I'll stay away because I feel like that's what all their games come down to. If I had to, I would play the Broncos, but I don't. So I'm going to have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I don't. I do. I'm just not. I'm done with Chargers games. I'm just done with them. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And no reason to play them. Welcome in day one. Donna,
nope.
Total Dallas, flip. Okay, a couple more to get through here. And we've got Philadelphia at Dallas. Big game. This is one where, hell, the Cowboys should have beat them in Philadelphia. I do think there's a bounce back here from Philadelphia, but I'm kind of leaning Dallas on this one.
It's at 3.5 now. I've got no interest, but I'm gonna like Dallas's team total over 27.5. This Dallas team is a freaking juggernaut on offense at home. Like we talked before the 49ers game about how much their defense was on the field, and then you saw like that Eagles defense was just gassed. And if you go back the last 7 games and you look at the offenses that the Eagles have played, it's like Dallas, Washington, Miami, Kansas City, Buffalo. Now it's Dallas again. I've been saying that Philadelphia is a luck box. They're on borrowed time. I think Dallas exposes their defense. The Cowboys are averaging 41 points per game at home this season. That's a crazy number. 41 points per game. Last week, they put up 41. Fletcher Cox, Darius Slay, Zach Cunningham still banged up for the Eagles defense. I don't know what I don't think the Eagles are as good as their record says they are. I think that they're going to be in a desperation spot here, but I don't want to back the Eagles. I just think the Cowboys are going to be really hard for them to keep up with. And the Cowboys outplayed the Eagles in the first game. The Cowboys should have won that first game. So I believe the Cowboys are the best team in the NFC East. This is going to sound crazy. I believe Dak Prescott is going to win the MVP of the league.
What number are you getting on that right now?
I think current is like 12-1 or maybe 8-1, but we put in a ticket at 28-1 a couple weeks ago, and that's feeling pretty good. But the thing that will make that really hard is if he loses twice to Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts is in that conversation with him. So if they'd say, let's compare MVP resumes, Jalen Hurts beat Dak twice, it's going to be hard to make that argument. So maybe I'm hedging a little bit here, but I like Dallas to win this thing.
All right, the 2 Monday games, Tennessee at Miami. Listen, Miami's one of those teams like we were talking about. They beat up the cripples. I
Yeah.
have made a lot of money this year on Miami with big lines against mediocre teams, and I see no reason not to do it again.
Yeah, I did some dumb shit last week and took the Commanders plus 9.5, and I was like, oh, Dolphins on the road, they're not. It's not going to be the same. But really, what it boils down to is what you said. It's the Dolphins against bad teams, and Tennessee's a bad team at this point. Once they're chasing, they're going to have to lean on Will Levis, and that's a disaster. So, Titans, you saw they had some offense last week because they were able to run the ball. When you can run against Miami like in the first quarter, and then once Miami gets up 10 or 14 on you, it gets very difficult. And Tennessee is good. Miami's going to score. Tennessee's 30th in DVOA against the pass. Miami's motivated. They're in the catbird seat for the 1 seed. Tennessee knows they're dead. The motivations couldn't be any more diverse. So I like Miami to just smash here too. I'll probably end up looking at a Miami team total or like a first half number. I don't really want to lay 13.5 points, but I do think Miami just bludgeons them.
All right, and then finally, Green Bay, who I still think sucks, but somehow keeps winning, at your Giants.
Packers won and covered 4 of the last 5, and the one they didn't cover, they missed an extra point on. The Giants have found a couple wins with DeVito. I don't know how repeatable it is. If you look, the Giants have 4 wins, and the 4 wins that they've got are against the teams that would currently pick 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the draft. Like they can beat these really, really dog shit teams. I don't know. I don't think Green Bay's that. I'm not super thrilled about laying a pretty big number with Green Bay on the road, but if I had to play it, that's the only way I'd play. Like New York winning games where they put up 220 yards of offense isn't sustainable.
No.
So I would have to back the road team or nothing here, and it's probably going to be nothing, to be honest.
Yeah, I just I'm going to take a look at the Giants just because I think there is going to be a bounce factor for Green Bay coming off a really big win at home against Kansas City and then going on the road. But I just think the difference in the teams is kind of tough to get over. Welcome.
And we asked this question: how many quarterbacks in the NFC? Like, if you were a GM and you had these quarterbacks for this is the guy you're going to start your franchise with for the rest of their careers. How many guys in the NFC would you take before you took Jordan Love?
What'd you come up with?
I said Dak Prescott is obviously a sure thing. Jalen Hurts is obviously a sure thing. And then you Kyler Murray, I think, is a sure thing. And then I think it's like Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Like, I mean, is Matt Stafford better right now? Yes, but you don't have much longer with Matt Stafford.
Yeah,
I think the break point is Jared Goff. Like, how much longer do you want of Jared Goff? But like in 2 years, like this could be the 5th best quarterback in the NFC. That's wild to think about, but because I don't think he's very good, which may speak more to the overall quarterback world, particularly in the NFC. But when we're talking about Jordan Love, we have to think of it in a relative state. Like, do I think Jordan Love's really good? No, but for the 2023 NFL season, he's not bad at all. Like, he's certainly good enough. If the rest of the team is decent, he's certainly good enough.
All right. Well, I will send you a text later with my bounce back hockey play for tonight after the worst showing of the year last night.
I've got one. You want mine?
Do it. Give it to the people.
Give me the Sharks Red Wings over 6.5. Last 3 games, Sharks have scored 16 goals.
Yeah, they're not
Red Wings.
They're not the bums they were at the beginning of the season.
Red Wings have scored 15 goals in the last 3 games. The Sharks, listen, their goalie situation is still dreadful. I don't think the Sharks are good, but I'm telling you that they're scoring a little bit. So again, don't take me. I'm no hockey wizard by any stretch, but I've been dabbling a little, doing okay. And I like that over 6.5. So that's the bet I made last night.
I love it. I mean, last night I had Carolina in because they were basically 6-0 after losses, and Sebastian Aho had scored like points in the last 10. He had like 18 points in the last 10 games against Edmonton, and unfortunately, it was just a bust. But the one the night before, it was almost the same setup. It was Devils in Vancouver over 6.5, and they scored 11 goals. It was like, yeah, we're good.
Listen,
I think that could happen with that game tonight.
I had my most success early in the season just betting VGK to win every game, and that gravy train's ended. But man, it was a good run. It was like 8 or 9 games in a row. I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna keep betting them every game. They just keep winning. It's free money.
Well, the whole Vancouver early in the season scoring goals like fiends. They still have 3 of the top point scorers in the league, and New Jersey was scoring a bunch too. So that was just one of those where you put those two together and it's awesome. But we were also able to ride the Ducks early. I think you have to back off that. Vegas has kind of settled into what it is, so they're going to be fine. But yeah, it really is fun once you start figuring out you just got to ride the hot teams and the bad goalies if you want overs. It's that simple.
Arizona's hot right now. Arizona's a play on team.
Yeah, right we played them the other night for an over. All right, we're about to run out of time, and it'll cut me off in the middle of my sentence again because I only have an hour 15. But I have no problem with going over. I'm not paying you overtime, by the way, just so you know.
That's all right.
Always a pleasure to have AJ on. AJ, thank you, brother. I will talk to you this week. I promise you I will talk to you, but there's no college football. I'll actually have time to reach out. So.
What do you mean, Army, Navy? Go Army, beat Navy.
All right, well, after Army, Navy. How's that?
Thank you. Respect it, Fred.
Have a good one, brother. All right.
See you guys.
I want to thank everybody for jumping in. If I didn't see you, Luke. I think that's Luke. Welcome. Day One Donna was here earlier. Terrence, welcome in. Total Dallas. Alex, all you guys. Barry showed up. Appreciate you, Barry. You're a great man, and I want to thank all you guys for popping in today. Monday we'll be at Midtown Bar and Grill. Please come by. I'll try to get Eva there again so she can show off her breasts. Tracy will be on, and we'll be showing her breasts off, but they won't be on, in person. But anyway, love all you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, and until Monday, stay sportsy, Gulf Coast badasses.